then brought her around, through the Panama Canal and operated for a year and a half out of Key West. I want to say we had 3 or 4 significant drug ops, as well as worrying about Cuba. We actually got called off one New Year's Eve. We had to go down and stay 13 miles off of Havana because there was a Soviet group in there. So, but anyway, it was a lot of ops, a lot of fun. Everybody enjoyed Key West, and I think the opportunity here to bring her back to Key West is just a win-win for everybody.
Great. I should mention I actually worked on a design for what became PHM starting in 1971, and participated all the way through the production ship effort, working Navy working with Boeing to develop the specs for the follow ships. So I have a soft spot in my heart for PHM. All right, the purpose of this meeting, preliminary discussions on the possibility of relocating Aries from Missouri to Key West, which a lot of us think would be the first choice if the ship were to be relocated. I just noticed we're missing Elliot, Ray.
Yeah, I'm recording, so we can get this recording to him.
Great. Okay. Elliot James has the Aries out at the museum. I had sent a link to the museum website, which includes a description of PHM-5 USS Aries as it currently sits out there in Gasconade, Missouri. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at that, see what the ship looks like. They recently acquired a radome similar to what was fitted on the ships when they were in operation. So Elliot and Bill Meinhardt and others have been basically bringing the ship back to life over a number of years. And so a lot of the auxiliary systems, diesel engines are working, and the ship was able to move under its own power from the inactive ships facility at Norfolk down around Florida and up the Mississippi River. So it is capable of getting underway. The ship, needs work. Elliot's in a continuing process of updating, various HM&E, home mechanical, electrical items and controls for the diesels and so forth. We've talked about briefly within a Hydrofoil Society, various relocation options besides Key West, St. Louis, Memphis, and Chicago, but clearly our preference would be Key West. There are some near-term mods and then more midterm and far-term mods that would be required for the ship if it were to be moved. First of all, for a transit from Missouri down to Key West to make sure it's capable of making the navigation down there. So Elliot's in the process of kind of tabulating those needs and looking at potential costs involved. A significant item is the cost of fuel to operate on the diesels, and for the distance we're looking at, it's several tens of thousands of dollars for diesel fuel. So that's an issue we'd have to address. Look for potential sponsors for that. Next item on the agenda was advantages of Key West, kind of as we see them at this point. First of all, there's a museum ship there already, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Ingham. Been there for quite a while. They went through the process of moving the ship there, and so we're hoping to get some lessons learned, from what they went through in getting their ship into Key West. Advantages, a large number of visitors all through the year, and I understand that the
this is Ray Valenga. We're having our Zoom meeting now. Oh well, we're on now, so if you can. We've got 6 of us. Okay, thank you, sir. Bye. Elliot will be here soon.
Oh, great. Okay, Elliot's going to jump on. We understand that the Coast Guard cutter is the 6th most visited attraction in Key West, so that that bodes well for the PHM-5 if we get it down there. It's close to the cruise ship pier. I've been there in cruises several times, and where the cutter is an ideal location. But most of all, the next item in the advantages is that the history of the PHM operations doing drug interdiction mission in the 1980s and into the early 1990s. And Historically, that's a Coast Guard mission, but the fact was that the drug runners had very high speed cigarette boats and so forth, and of course now they operate even more sophisticated craft, semi-submersibles. But at that time, the Coast Guard had no surface ships able to do that mission. So the Navy assigned the PHMs to that very successful history, which is discussed in that historical document by George Jenkins, and very, very successful. And then the next item is availability of potential volunteers. If Aries is relocated to Key West, we'll need a cadre of people willing to staff the ship for visitors, operate it hopefully on its hull, to take visitors on rides in the area of Key West, and then maintain the ship, in a material condition, keep it up, and do a lot of cosmetic work on the ship, and establish it as a museum ship site in Key West. The things we got to worry about are pier space cost and access. We don't have any data available at this point on what that might involve. Pier services. I'm assuming that Coast Guard cutter has access to electricity and a potable water source, security and lighting and so forth, but that has to be considered. Water depth, undoubtedly the Aries would have to have foils up coming in and out of the pier location. Whether there's any special environmental constraints in the harbor there that we need to know about. And then last but most important, having your support, Navy League and the city manager's support, which is why we're having this Zoom meeting today. That's kind of our thoughts at this point. Appreciate, I guess at this point, your thoughts on what the possibilities would be, and then what the next steps would be to make this happen.
Well, I can start if you want, Al. The actual pier that's there, which is the Truman Waterfront, or we call it the Quay Wall, is the city's property. The bay bottom is not ours, so there would be a bay bottom lease involved. All of that belongs to the Navy. The whole port, and belongs to the Navy, so nobody's allowed to come in and out of that port. Besides the Coast Guard cutter that's sitting there. They do have water, they do have electricity. Of course, it's made for that boat. I don't believe there's enough there for it to do another one. So we would have to there would probably have to be another one put in. That's something we'd have to ask our electrical engineer about, if that was designed for more than one ship or just for that ship to plug into it. I mean, it's not like they're full power, up. They have a person that stays on that ship. When you're talking about security, that's their security. Besides, we have our rotating police, that go through the park itself, because the park is an open park. I mean, it has a splash pad there. It has an exercise, area for everybody. It has a big open area. The powerboat races will be there this coming. They start this weekend and go through the next weekend, so they'll be in there. And they use the outer mole as part of their what they do. So basically, we don't have any access in there except whenever the Navy asks for our assistance. There is enough room on that wall for another ship. The question is that like the city manager can discuss the opportunity to do that. It would block some of the area down there. That's a locals area to go to watch sunset, as opposed to Mallory Square, so that they don't get down there and get involved with thousands of people that are there if they want to see sunset. But I'm sure that if it comes further, I can get you the contact for the Ingham. He's been the person that's been on site with that since that Ingham was put there. So he would be able to, talk to you a lot about the ins and outs of it. And I would think that it would be something you would kind of want to coordinate with him, and possibly have him kind of spearhead both, because he's got the volunteers that like, doing that kind of stuff. He's got the contacts with the TDC to get the funding sources that he does for it to be, as a designated museum. he's gotten, we call it brick and mortar funding, but because he's a ship, it's a little bit different. To put in museum type displays inside the ship, and those be funded by the Tourism Development Council, so that it doesn't take any money from the normal funds that he gets for donations when people come on and take the tours. And he also does like sunset gatherings there with beer and that kind of stuff that helps them with the funds to sustain it and keep up the maintenance. Like they just had it hauled out of there and hauled all the way up north, pulled out of the water, had the whole underneath redone metal wise and coated and everything. So that's where we're at from the standpoint of what I know over there with the actual quay wall, with what the Ingham has done and what they've done and how they operate as an actual museum, and having people come on and teach, and then doing their sunset stuff that they do every evening. City Manager Childress.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So, yeah, I'm very much in favor of it. I think it would be great for the city of Key West, and I think it would be great for our community. We are a naval community, but I had an opportunity just to run this by my assistant city manager, and he said, "Oh no, we don't want that." And then one of the department directors said, "Oh no, that would block the view of the water view, and we're getting complaints about the Coast Guard ship out there already." But I'll be happy to spearhead it and try to push this through and start talking to other people, talking to elected officials. But I think it's a great idea.
Great. The point of contact for the Ingham, Dorian, who would that?
I can email that to you.
Great.
I'll get you that. I'll email it to the group email that you had. So that way you can talk to him and you can talk about the ins, outs, and see if he'd see what his idea is, and if he'd like to, kind of have another one there and it'd be a double one, or if he thinks it would, draw the way. I mean, it's two totally different things. I mean, if you're a coastie, you're a coastie, I think, and you're going to run to it and want to see, what you can see and get on. And, the hydrofoil boats are one of a kind. I mean, I can tell you personally, until you said something about it, I had to look it up and see what they were myself.
Yeah, I thought that would be the case. The interesting thing here is there's a nexus between the two services. Well, in wartime, the Coast Guard, falls under the Navy, but and when the PHMs did the drug ops, they by law were prohibited from, arresting civilians. So they carried a Coast Guard law enforcement detachment of 3 people. When they ran, chased the cigarette boats until those guys ran out of gas, it was the coasties that went on board, arrested people or, charged them and seized the drugs. So it was a joint, in that sense, those counter drug ops were a joint capability. So it's an interesting, if there was a cutter, back in those days that could go over 30 knots. At that point, they only had a couple of surface effect ships, and they were limited in sea state and could only do 30 knots in fairly calm water. So you have an interesting connection there, and hopefully, we might even think about this being a joint museum site. So, and we had already discussed it in our group that we got to get in touch with those guys and find out what they went through, and get some templates as far as what the process details are. So that would be great.
Yeah, because I think only part of it is, of course, having your contacts here. Part of it is the city of Key West and what they can do, as in getting the authorization and the approval from city commission to have it on that wall. And then, of course, the Bay Bottom lease is a total another one, whether they'll rent the city any more space, or, I mean, I don't even think it's a rental type thing. I don't think it's, that about the money. I think it's about, who's in there, what it is, what's happening. They still do dive training in that port. They have all the channels all cut out where they do the dive training, and the divers go through and do the nighttime training underneath the water. They scale up the other side of the Coast Guard cutter Ingham and do the ops on there and rescue the people out of the ship. All that kind of stuff is still stuff that they do in joint operation with the Navy and the Army dive teams and stuff that are down here. So it's an active port in that respect. Beyond that, when we do our commissionings down here, that's what they use it for. But very seldom is there any, large ships.
Mhm.
The USS Lena Higbee was the one that we just commissioned down here, and that was on the outside of the port because it wasn't deep enough within the port, but it was made as a deep port. I just don't know, what the specifications that y'all need are, which is all something we can get our port marine director involved. He was the commanding officer of the Navy base here in Key West before he retired, and he was a Navy fighter pilot. So he'd be all in on this situation, and I'm sure he's familiar with everything that y'all. I think he was just getting in back then, but he was a fighter pilot before he retired, being the commander down here. So you have your Navy contact within the city, and he would be the one that we would be dealing with a lot on all the logistics on the bay bottom leases and that kind of stuff.
Great. Well, Elliot joined us. Elliot, we didn't, I gave just a few seconds of comment on the Aries and its current status. Did you want to?
Yeah, sure. So the Aries has been in fresh water since we sailed her home back from Charleston, South Carolina. We had her hauled to Charleston, South Carolina. We did our refitting there and sailed her home. So she's been in fresh water the whole time. She's going to need to be hauled out if she's going to spend any time at all in salt water. The controls that are on her are controls that we put together to sail the ship home. And they'll get her to where she needs to go. Of course, there's always work that can be done to improve what we have. The ship travels at about 55 gallons of diesel fuel an hour underway, and she's got two onboard 60 cycle generators. Most of the equipment is 400 cycle, but we carry 400 cycle as well as 60 cycle. But we use VFDs and things to convert that on board. So shore power doesn't have to be the 400 cycle that it used to be when they were actively stationed there. There's going to be a bit of work that needs to be done before she sails again. We have sailed her since we brought her home. We've actually moved to Gasconade Harbor. It's the old government shipyard in Gasconade, and it was that's her home right now. She's still in the water. She's still in fresh water, and she hasn't been hauled since she was at the Naval Inactive Shipyard in '96, I suppose. We have Coast Guard certification as a recreational vessel. We are eligible as an attraction vessel, so we can actually charge for tours or have tours. Our only requirements are that the Coast Guard is given heads up to check our moorings if they want to, but that's pretty much the only restrictions. We were fortunate in our ability to acquire the provenance on the hull. That's a very difficult thing with old Navy ships, particularly, and being able to get Coast Guard certification. But the ship was new enough, and there were still Boeing people around, and we were able to get that done. So that's a hurdle that opens up a lot of other possibilities for the ship. The ship travels now with the concurrent control system. We brought her back with a manning of 3 people. She travels well, and she's pretty much set up as far as berths go, galley and things like that. There'll be some time and work that needs to go into putting some of these systems, especially the sewage treatment plant and those kind of things, back into service, because we don't need to use them there at the shipyard. The ship is currently privately owned. It is owned by myself and BJ or Bob Joe Meinhardt, and her home port is Gasconade, Missouri. What happens to her after this? It kind of depends on where we go. But our goal right now is to ensure the survival of the Aries, and as pretty much the epitome of hydrofoil technology as it existed then and even today. So I think that she's very relevant. We've always kind of planned on a traveling museum. However, a permanently moored vessel is also quite capable, especially in Key West. In Key West, a lot more so than she would be in Missouri. In Missouri, if you don't travel someplace and go, well, you quickly run out of people who are interested in seeing a Navy ship. She's kind of a fish out of water, so to speak, where she is right now. But she's here because it's inexpensive. I did contact the city of Key West probably 12 years ago, maybe in a little bit farther than that. And it was, at the time, the plan was to get rid of the vessel, the Coast Guard vessel that had there now, and turn that into a yacht basin. And that obviously didn't work out. And the air there has changed a lot. And I'm really encouraged by Mr. Childress, and I sure appreciate his confidence. It sounds like we're kind of turning around. I did talk to Bill that runs the Ingram, and he was very excited also about the prospect of the Aries coming, because the Aries was spent pretty much all her time there, that there is a very good tie to the city, which would enable us to have a National Historic Landmark status. She can't do that where she is now because there is no tie to the middle of Missouri with the vessel, but that's one of the requirements. And but there is a significant tie to Key West. So we've always thought Key West would be the best home for the Aries, and we'd like to see and do whatever we can to make that happen.
Right. Well, it sounds like we're all kind of on the same sheet of paper, so which is good. And we're really thrilled that the reception would be as good as it sounds. And I think we got the fact that the Ingham's there, and the mission was so relevant then, and in fact it's still relevant now, I think it would really help gain support. So clearly we need to do more discussions. I'll look forward to your email, Dorian. We'll all see that with contact for the Ingham, and talk to them and try to get whatever documentation they have on how they set the Ingham up in Key West, and hopefully not have to recreate everything from scratch as we pursue this further.
And I was saying, it sounds like Elliot has that contact.
Yeah, if that's the right name, Bill. His name is Bill. Bill. We don't know we don't have his last name. At least I didn't write it down before. But.
And it's been a while since I talked to Bill.
Right. Yeah.
So, if you have that information. Well, one other thing, I know that Mr. Childress, you'd mentioned that people are concerned about the view being blocked, and the Aries is a lot smaller, low-profile ship than the Ingham is, and so I think that that might go a long way to alleviating some of that.
Was the ship ever docked in Key West?
When she did all her entire duty was in Key West, right, guys?
Yeah, but it was, we were over at Trumbo,
Point.
but we'd go about past Mallory, go out to sea. Even once in a while, we'd go out the Northern Passage up through, I guess, Hemingway Banks, whatever. That was always a fun sea detail, but because she only drew about well, it depended on how much weapons and gas we had, but we didn't draw that much when we were on the hull.
I think I sent pictures in the last email.
Yeah,
I've got them. Mr. Childress is out of town, so he did not get them, but I got them. I was impressed. I was impressed by the car, and I was even more impressed by all the cars. I was like, "Yep, those are some old cars in front of that." And you could tell by looking at them, they were all brand new cars, but 20, 30, 40 years old.
That's gonna be a great selling point.
Yeah, I was an engineer in training at what was Naval Ship Engineering Center at the time, early on in the program. So it was only Pegasus. I went down there to ride around on it, and they were doing I think a HiCats, a navigation system checkout, and we were just putting around outside of Key West, and the skies got real dark. And next thing we knew, there was a water spout off the port side, about 2 miles away. So it was exciting for me as a young naval architect down there. So. Okay, well, I guess we'll write up some notes of this meeting, Dory, and I'll send you what I scratched down, and we can, put together a set of notes from the meeting.
I'll send you a link to this recorded video to, we've got the whole thing recorded, so, and we'll get it to Mary. She couldn't make it. She had death in the family.
Right. Okay, any final thoughts? And based on, making some contacts with the Coast Guard folks, I think at this point it's premature to set up the next Zoom meeting, but we'll figure that out and see what the next steps should be to help make this happen. So I want to thank you guys at the city manager's office and Manager Childress for getting back to us so quickly. Really appreciate that.
And Mark, I'll turn the helm over to you for the upcoming Zoom meetings, because Patricia and I are going to Vietnam, leaving on the 11th, so we'll be gone for the month of November.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get you the Ingham contact that I have, so that you can talk and make sure if that's the person that Elliot talked to previously.
Right.
And then I'll, City Manager Childress will feel out the commissioners that when he gets to have meetings with them again, and just kind of puts it on his. And then in the meantime, I'll contact our Port and Marine Director, Commander McInerney, and see how the Bay Bottom leases and stuff work with what the Ingham has, and what the next course of action is. See how we can acquire it, what it costs, what we have to go through to get it approval and that kind of stuff. Because I guess that's the biggest thing. If we can't have the Bay Bottom, it doesn't matter if we can tie to the wall or not.
Right. All right, sounds good.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks.
I gotta-
Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
All
good
right,
weekend.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, good meeting.
Yeah,
Thank-
Mark, feel free to email me. You can email me whenever you need. You can go back and forth.
Great.
As you can see, City Manager Childress, he's in the waiting room at the hospital. His wife fell and broke her knee.
Oh, man.
So
Wow.
she was up there, and then 4 days later, they finally got to do surgery. So she has to stay in ICU for 2 days after the surgery, then gets to go home for 6 weeks before she can start rehab. I was like, oh,
Wow, that's rough.
yeah, you don't want that happening. She was up there for her 50th class reunion,
Jeez.
and it didn't even happen at the class reunion. So,
Wow. Well, tell her the
oh, and
Hydrofoil
Commander
Society.
McInerney just walked into the city manager's office. So I will catch him. But I think that's the most important things.
Right.
Finding out about the Bay Bottom lease is one thing. Contacting the Ingham, because you're going to be bumper to bumper, as we'd say, with them. And if they've
Right.
expressed interest and that, the Navy League, like you said, what they wouldn't have any help in getting in here, but a lot of theirs are volunteers. So, there would definitely be a lot of them that could help with the actual operation of it, because they'd have to have volunteers on both ships no matter what.
Right.
And then the education behind it from, somebody like one of you that are very
Yeah.
familiar with it, because I believe you could have been in the Navy for 20 years and not know a lot about those ships. Is that correct? It's
Yeah,
kind of
we were kind
silly.
of down. We were down at Key
like
West.
some
and,
of them will be like, yeah, I know what they are, but I've never had to step foot on one. That wouldn't be, that far out there. So getting the education to them and all that kind of stuff, so that they can actually give a educated tour of these, because of course, anything that people can get on, just them being able to go around and see what they see the fighter planes going overhead, all that is all cool to them. But when they actually get to go on and walk where, troops have walked and see everything, that's what they love about the Ingham. They get to go in there and, be where all the officers were. That makes the difference to them. And I know, and they get to go away with a piece of that history. And I'm sure that he gets that. I took all those pictures and copied them and pasted them so I could have them in kind of a photo album for him. because I thought those were very, very cool pictures, especially as old as those pictures are. And then there was like 3 of them lined up over there. So it wasn't just the Aries down here. Y'all had 3. Did you have all 5 down here at one time?
6 at one
So
time.
6 total
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
those ops? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
we
they
have
have
a-
Elliot,
cool
Elliot, you
pictures.
use the Sea Cadets a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. Sea Cadets do a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
he's been using the Sea Cadets in Missouri, so I think Sea Cadets through the Navy League would really eat up on this.
Yeah, we got the Sea Cadets, we got the ROTC kid. I mean, when we have them in the parade, it's like 200 of them between all the different ones in the Christmas parade that we're gonna have in a month. So yes, it is very interesting to me. I'm not from a military background, but seeing everything that goes on here, our new military commander of the base, Beth Rigoli, she is very active in the city of Key West. You know, she is great with us. She just got through doing our ambassador program, so she learned all about the entire city. It's a 13-week program where you learn every aspect of the city of Key West. She just graduated from that, so she loves it down here, and I'm sure she would be all on top of it too. It just changed base commanders last year, in the beginning of last year.
Great.
But if
We
you think of anything else, Mark, send me the questions and I will get
Right.
you the answers.
Great. All right. Thanks, Dorian.
And I'll
Thanks.
get you the next meeting wherever you want. We can have the assistant city manager that he was referring to is a Coastie, 27 years. He retired. He wanted to retire here in Key West, so he retired and then coming to work for the city of Key West as our risk manager. And now he's the assistant city manager.
Great.
So he has a good background in the military.
Dorian, could you get his email address to either Mark or me and anybody else who should be on the mailing list or should be in these meetings, get their email address to Mark or me and we'll
Sure.
in the
Yep, I will send it to that group email that you did. I'll give it to you in his title and his name. Basically at this point, it's the city manager, assistant city manager, myself, and then I'll just ask Commander McIlerney some questions. And then once it gets farther along, because that's not one of his ports, I mean, his thing is basically just kind of a question and answer thing. Because he has 3 different ones that he controls and about 270 boat slip leases. We're like one of the smallest city with the most amount of city lease property that there is, but between our charter fishing and then, like you say, the yachts, like Hendricks Motorsports, his yacht is down there in the marina, and everything. So he deals with a lot of them, but I'll get all the information we need together and get it to you, and then you can proceed from there.
Great.
And Chuck, is there something you want to add? You didn't get a chance to speak yet.
No, I pretty much got it all in. I think everybody's made their points. It's
Okay,
just whatever we need to do, I guess, to start the process is the
Hey,
next.
Chuck, there's
Yeah.
some guys down in the Keys though that were with the program, right?
Yeah, there's still a couple of guys that are that retired and stayed down there or moved out down there. So there's at least 3 that I know of, maybe more. So
okay, and I'll tell you what, I'll post this on our hydrofoil channel on YouTube, so it'll be very easy to anyone to click on it and get up to date as to where we're going. And so anybody who's interested can get on board easily. All right, Mark, is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Dorian, for.
You're
helping
quite
us.
well, Elliot. So and what you were saying about it, so it has living quarters on there that somebody could actually stay on board and be on board security.
Yeah,
not-
that's right.
Just
Was
not
it
the
20
sewer part of the equation.
Was it 24 berths in total, Elliot, or?
Yeah, there are 24 berths.
Well, it was
There's one
21
spare.
Navy, 21 Navy crew and 3 Coasties when the ships were operating.
Okay. Yeah, that would be like, you know, that's of course the good thing. You can get a security guard on the boat for free if he has room aboard.
yeah.
he can go do his job, his regular job during the day and be on the boat. And if he hears something or if alarm goes off, he jumps out of bed. I mean, you can get a single police officer is just starting out to go over there and be your onboard security at nighttime if he doesn't have to pay anything for sure.
Yeah.
And he can take his showers and all that at the police station.
There
Right.
you go.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
okay, that's great. I just wanted to make sure I heard you say that, and I was assuming that, I mean, all those would still be things like when y'all decide to come and visit and do guest talks and stuff, you can stay on there for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
We didn't quite get to Key West when we came home. So we couldn't go through a Lake Okeechobee because there's a 47-foot wide bridge. And so we came down through the Keys, and it was, but we crossed at Marathon. We were pretty much broke by that time, and we were just looking for the closest route home. But it was great, and it was amazing how many people remembered the ship. And they kept saying, are you guys coming back to Key West? Are you coming back? And it was pretty neat going through there.
One more thing about that, talking about running out of money. Anybody who's got an idea about a corporate sponsor, get the word out, and we'll get them contacted, and they can get their name on the side of the ship. I'd say, right, Elliot? At least
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we'll give them some publicity, and we can make a big deal out of it. Money always helps, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that is, of course, that's a little bit down the line, but you're looking for funding. You're going to need the funding to get it here is basically fuel. Is that correct? I mean, there's no other expenses to get it here, except maybe a captain, or Elliot, are you still?
Well, we didn't have one coming home, so we can get her to Key West. And we've got plenty of volunteers in this group. So the manning's not going to be a problem. So it's going to be, fuel is going to be our single biggest expense. There's going to be some expense putting some systems back in use. The fuel is going to be the big one. A fuel sponsor would be great. That's really what we need.
And then you said it needs to come out of the water. So it needs to come out of the water for like the hull and stuff to be painted, treated, and everything before it sits in our water.
Before it sits there for any length of time, that's right. Because she hasn't been out of the water since we brought her home. But she's always been in fresh water.
Yeah,
Right.
so you have slime instead of barnacles.
Oh yeah, exactly.
There's one other in that connection I was thinking about while we were talking before. It's been good that the ship's been in freshwater, because when the squadron was operating, and Carl and Chuck might remember this, the description of Key West was like an ideal lab, corrosion lab, and PHM, the design had a lot of dissimilar metal issues. This 17.4 pH stainless steel foils, the aluminum hull, the water jet, oil-blown water jet pump was Inconel 625, and eventually, and this impacted the production ship design, we had to have an impressed current cathodic protection system designed and installed on all the ships, because they would have been eaten away. So if the ship is moved, we'll have to relook at that. And we had cathodic protection corrosion experts in-house, Navy then, and worked with the Boeing engineers, and wrote the specs for the follow ships, and that was implemented. And as far as I know, and Chuck and Carl would have to speak to this, that worked. But it's something to keep in mind. That would be an additional, there'd be some non-recurring cost to come up with a design for that. It's current technology. There's no rocket science involved, but we probably have to look at doing that, keep that stuff at bay. So.
And you said it's 55 gallons an hour. How many hours do you calculate it taking to get it back to Key West?
We travel at about 100 miles a day, and I think
that's about 10 knots, Elliot, or 11?
Yeah, about knots? 10, 11 knots. We'll have a little bit of current with us coming down where we were fighting it, but we'll probably go through Okeechobee anyway, or not Okeechobee, but the Tom Bigsby, which means it's mostly lifts. So, but we'll have a little bit, it'll be a little bit easier going downhill. And I think we burned about 14,000 gallons of fuel coming back. And so a one-way trip to Key West is going to take probably 10 of that from here. We can do a little bit better calculating, but
No, that gives us an idea. And what's the going rate for diesel right now? I don't even know for that.
for here we're looking at $4.
Okay. Yeah, I know once you get down here, it costs a lot more for it to come downhill. Like everything. People are like,
Right.
why is that gallon of milk so much? I said, well, it took the guy 4 hours just to get it here.
So we're looking at 40K then.
Yeah, I think we figured our expenses are going to be close to 50,000
Right.
to get the ship down to Key West.
Okay. Well, we can definitely go through all the kind of stuff whenever we get closer. I mean, the Navy League, of course, we can do charity events. The second thing you want to think about from the perspective of the long-term attraction and it being down here, not just sitting over there and people not knowing about it, is maybe teaming up with somebody like HTA, Historic Tours of America, and making it a tour spot. Then they can sell the tours to the people coming off the cruise ships. They can sell the tours to the people within, and then that would be a reason for them to possibly back it in the beginning to get it here, and then actually be able to sell the tours and stuff, and you actually have a person there that mans it and that kind of stuff. If you wanted to go the commercial route,
Right.
if you did the other route where it was hooked up with Ingham and it's all volunteer type operation, that's all well and good, but people can come to Key West and not know that ship is there unless they're looking for it, because it's not in the tourist area. Yes, it's right there where the cruise ship comes, but until they build Admiral's Cut, where you can literally take a turn to the left and walk over and be at that where the hydrofoil would be in about 10 minutes of walking, you have to get on a train, a bicycle, a scooter, and go all the way around through Truman Annex and come back around to get to where that is now. So even though the butt of the ship, the cruise ship, is at the end of that port and they can see it sitting there, they'd have no idea without the proper, advertisement and people telling, people what it is, unless they're looking for it in their military and they go, military museum and Google and that kind of stuff once it's on the registry. So getting a big partner like that, I mean, HTA is huge. I mean, they're huge here, Savannah, Nashville. I'm not sure how far up they go, but I know they got them everywhere. Something like that might be something that you want to look into, and then they would have the money to write you a $50,000 check.
That would be good. Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
without having to, as we say, without having to piecemeal it. But I know that's way down the road from where we're at now. We'll start off with the preliminary stuff, getting in contact and talking about Bay Bottom lease and the city once we get past that. But it's just something for you to think about. HTA is the biggest one, and they have the very first booth as soon as those people come off, so they can give them the information on it and book tours and get groups of 50 and put them on a trolley and take them around there to it and that kind of stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah, if we get all this in place and could give them a firm, time frame for when they could actually start, selling paid for tours, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. That if they're going to front us 40, 50,000, we'll need to know when they can start seeing some, some revenue. And so, but if we can firm this all up with a pretty accurate time frame, and especially be able to sync that up with the cruise ship, the cruise ship operators, that sounds like it could work. So
I mean, that's the biggest thing. And then I know ticket, the portion of the ticket's got to go to the the main entity, but of course you'll want a 20-30% to go into a fund for longevity. meaning, you know, 2-3 years down the road when you got to start doing outside maintenance and cosmetic stuff, which is what they just went through. I mean, they just got through painting the whole thing, but the underside, it was in the water for so long that I believe it was in the water for over 5 years without an inspection. So they were afraid that something was going to happen. It was going to end up on the bottom of the the port there instead of being on the being floating in it. So that's when they took it out of here, had all that, all the metal and stuff done, and then put it back in the water.
Now, I know you mentioned how that was paid for, but I didn't catch it. How was it actually funded?
They did fundraisers
Okay.
to do it, to get it out, because they had that certain, because it doesn't move on its own power, so it literally had to be towed all the way up there and towed all the way back. So I'm sure that, you know, was a little bit more of an expense than what you were talking about. But in all actuality, I wanted to say that when they were talking about the towing part of it, I mean, you're talking $40,000 in fuel to get down here. They towed it up to where is it? Is it North Carolina is where they do it?
In Wilmington, I know.
Is that where they do all that kind of stuff?
Well, that's where the battleship is, in North Carolina.
No, I'm talking about the when they do the work on the ship, the big ships like the Coast Guard cutter. Because I want to say when they said they had to tow it out, it was only like $10,000 to $15,000 each way towing it.
Huh.
Well, it wasn't very far then.
Yeah,
I mean, I know
that's
there's a
not-
Coast Guard yard in Baltimore, but it couldn't have been that one. So.
Yeah, it cost us. We had our ship towed from the Naval Inactive Shipyard down to Charleston, South Carolina, and that was a $12,000 tow. And the PHM towed really easy.
Yeah.
They just put a river tow against her stern and bolted to her and pointed her down. They didn't have any problem, but that was a $12,000 tow, so they couldn't have taken the Ingham very far for 10 grand today.
Yeah, you'll be able to. I'll get you the information. I thought I had it in my phone, but I definitely have it in my computer, and I'll get it to you so you can discuss all that with him and the logistics and see what he says. Because if he doesn't want you to be his neighbor, he thinks it's going to take away from his, then he'll put up the fight and say, I was here first. And
Can't blame it.
Yeah, I mean, that we talked about it for a few seconds, but I think that argues in favor, like these areas where there's a bunch of FDR and, associated things to see it, do a group, a combined ticket kind of thing. And part of that, selling that would be the fact that there is this history of, the missions the PHMs did. So, that could benefit both, both ships, just have a stronger story for inter-service cooperation, all that. So, I think that would solve very well. All right, anything else?
Okay, is that it? All right, then we'll say goodbye, and I might not see you next time because we'll be on the road, but we'll talk to you in January. And Mark, you've got it from here.
All right, thanks, Ray.
Okay,
all
thanks.
right, thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Yeah,
Thank
tell
Y'all-
Manager Childress' wife, Hydrofoil Society is pulling for her. So hope she
Very
gets.
good. I would do it.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye all.
I
Thank
know.
you all.